I've done a lot of different types of projects as I've been renovating my house for the last few years, and people typically say to me, you make it look easy, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. So I figured I would give myself a taste of my own medicine and attempt some smaller projects that I've seen some other YouTubers do and see if they're as easy as they look. The first project that I attempted was from a creator, Jenna's Home. She has the most beautiful home, lots of different makeovers, and she found this jar at home store, and it looked really similar to kind of these vintage rice wine jars. In Jenna's video, which I will link down in the description, she made a custom paint color and used some glazed spray paint to make the piece look glazed, and this is what she was able to create. So I already had one of these jars that I had gotten from HomeGoods. It's not vintage, but I had a similar look. But I wanted to add this smaller one that I found at the at-home store. I wasn't able to find the tan version, but I did find this faded black version. She used 2 parts of olive green with 1 part of burnt umber and mixed them together and just gave the piece a really good coat of paint. So I ended up adding 2 coats of paint to my piece. Still following Jenna's project, before the second coat was completely dry, I used a wet sponge and dabbed on some of that burnt umber paint just to kind of give a little bit of dimension to the project. It's very subtle, especially once it dries. And then I added this glazed spray paint from Krylon. I think I did about 3 coats on this, and it makes it really shiny, gives it a glazed look. I've never seen a product like this before, and I loved how it came out. The previous piece that I had looked more distressed and older, so just like on Jenna's project, I went in and distressed it a little bit. I took some sandpaper and just kind of sanded off the finish that I had put on top, letting that darkness show through the original piece. And then I took some beige paint and just added some little dots and distressing in different places. And I used a wet paper towel to kind of blot that and make it look kind of old and faded all across the piece. So this is how this project turned out, and I have to say this is just as easy as Jenna from Jenna's Home makes it look. Before we move on to the next project, I just need to tell you guys about the coolest book that I just got by Hungry Minds. It's called The Book, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding Civilization. So it's an illustrated encyclopedia that offers a fascinating journey through the most significant human inventions, appealing to both adults and kids. The best-selling book was a top project on Kickstarter, and it has tons of great reviews. It has a little bit of something for everyone, from railroads to perfume to origami. Whether you're wanting to learn something new or just enjoy the beauty of history, this book would make a great gift for someone else or even yourself. The book is quite large. It has over 400 pages, and they've been handcrafted with beautiful illustrations and printed on really high quality paper. And the book itself is a really beautiful work of art. I think it would look really great sitting out on a coffee table, but it would also be super useful too. So you can get 10% off of the book by using code Kelsey DIY10 when you click the link in the description, so make sure that you guys go check them out. The next project comes from another super talented creator that I follow, Evelyn Hernandez, and she took some bar stools that kind of were like an orange oak and used Easy Off oven cleaner to remove all of that polyurethane and lacquer and make them look more primitive, and it came out so beautifully. So I wanted to give this a try. I found these bar stools on Facebook Marketplace. I paid $40 for all 3. Now they had, I think, probably twice as much as the stools in Evelyn's video because they had a lacquer and then they also had a dark brown coat on top of it. So following Evelyn's directions, I gave the stool a really good coat of the Easy Off, and I made sure to do it in the shade so it doesn't dry out. I let the stool sit for about 20 to 30 minutes and then I used some soap and water and started scrubbing, and I was truly shocked at how easily this came off. You can see the brown just completely melting off of it. And then I hosed everything off to get as much of the brown off as I could. And after it dried out in the sun, this is what it was looking like. There were some spots that didn't remove evenly, a little bit more orange. And I think that's because it had that double layer that I was talking about. So I decided to do one more coat on the stool just to get all of that orange underneath. It had done a good job on the brown, but there was still a little bit more orange than I wanted. So one light coat later and scrubbing and hosing it off. And this is how it turned out. I loved this project, and I'm going to say it was easier than I thought it was going to be. The next project comes from another creator that I like, Tasha at Home, and I love her videos, specifically her thrifting videos. And I was watching one and I saw her find this candle, and they were very similar to these ones that you see here with the wicker on the outside. They're woven and the candle just kind of drops in. And I just really loved that idea, and I figured I could find something similar. So this isn't technically a DIY by Tasha, but it's inspired by one of her thrift finds, so I wanted to give it a try. So when I was out thrifting, I found a couple of these little woven baskets here, and I figured that I could put a candle in them. But first I needed a little bit of work to make them the color that I was looking for. I gave each of the pieces a really good coat of Rust-Oleum spray paint in the color Nutmeg, but I wanted to go a little bit further than that. You can see the difference between these two. The one on the right is just the spray paint alone. So I decided to go in with some antiquing wax. This is from Walmart, and I just used a little paintbrush and basically slapped this all over the piece. This is seriously the easiest DIY ever. After everything was dry, I just used a candle that I picked up at the at-home store and dropped that into the little basket, and that was a completed project. Now, I did not find a candle to fit the other little basket that I did, but I'm sure I will eventually, and I can use that somewhere else in my home. But I loved this project too, and it was just about as easy as it gets. The last DIY that we're going to be doing today is from another creator that I love to watch, Janae. She has such great style and great ideas, and she found this ceramic piece from Home Goods, and she gave it a coat of paint and distressing and glaze and turned it into a kind of antique aged vessel that can be pretty pricey. So I figured we could give this one a shot following her directions. I couldn't use the exact pieces, Janae, because she found hers at Home Goods, but I did find this utensil holder at the at-home store, and I think the shape is pretty similar to the look that I'm going for. So first, Janae went in with the color linen and gave the entire piece a really good coat and covered it completely. Next, she used the color raw sienna and also some dark wax to kind of make the pot look aged, make it look a lot more antique and not like it just had a fresh coat of paint. I think I went a little bit overboard with this. It ended up a little bit darker than I wanted it to be, and I was having a hard time getting it to spread out, but I let it dry, and then I added that same glaze spray paint that I used on the rice wine jar before. But here's where everything started to go wrong. The paint and the spray paint was just completely peeling off of my piece, and I'm sure that this was 100% my fault. I think I put too thick of layers on. In her video, Janae says that she put 4 very light layers, so I don't think that I was patient enough, and that's why it started to peel. So I decided to use this Krylon Fusion paint in the color Matte River Rock as my base coat instead of the acrylic paint because I thought it would adhere a little bit better. So I gave the piece a couple of light coats of that spray paint and let that dry. Okay, now we're back following Janae's project again. I'm using that raw sienna color and some dark wax to kind of antique the piece. I'm using a combination of a wet paper towel and a sponge to apply it, and then I'm using the clean part of a wet paper towel and a wet sponge to kind of blend that out and remove the excess. One thing that I think helps Janae's project to look authentic are these little dot details that she added. So I'm adding those to my pot too. I noticed that they are also on the original vintage pots. I don't know where they come from, but they're just little dark spots. So I added a bunch of those with a little small paintbrush. Then I took the pot outside and gave it a really good coat of the glaze spray paint. Actually, a few good coats of that glaze spray paint because I wanted it to be really shiny. After that was completely dry, I brought it in and decided to style it in my kitchen with all of my little utensils. I found it a little bit more difficult than I thought it was going to be, just because I was a little bit particular on how I wanted this piece. So it made it a little bit trickier, but I still think it turned out really good. Thank you so much for watching today's video. It was a really fun one to make, and thank you to the creators for the inspiration for these projects. I love watching their videos. Let me know down in the comments which project you guys like the best, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!